Today, I'm speaking with Mary Robinette Cowell, puppeteer, audible narrator, award winning author, and incredible community member, about her journey with her learners, Elsie and Guppy. Stay tuned for trials and tribulations and a peek inside their amazing relationships.
Hello, Mary Robinette. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm so excited to learn more about Elsie and Guppy and you and your backstory and how you came to be a part of this community. You are blowing up right now on social media. Elsie is amazing. And I know a lot about your journey, but I'm about to learn so much more and I'm really excited. So thank you for joining me.
I am so excited to be here. You are an absolute delight, and I'm very happy to have an excuse to chat with you.
Oh, yeah, same. Totally same. So I know that you as a human are absolutely fascinating. All right, we're already in that mode. I
Perfect.
know that you as a human are absolutely fascinating. You have so many interesting things going on: puppetry, audiobook narration. You're an award winning sci fi author. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about how you got into augmentative interspecies communication and what that journey looked like for you.
So, I have always been fascinated with animals and language. And I was working on a book and started researching animal language acquisition because I needed that. So, this started as research. I stumbled across Christina Hunger, of course, and then Bunny, and then Billy. Billy Speaks was the first cat that I saw doing this. And my first reaction to it was, yeah, is this language or is this stimulus response? Like I was very skeptical. And the more I watched, the more I was like, oh no, this is a thing. Like I remember watching the video of Billy dissing the Hamilton music, and I'm like, there was no way to watch is anything other than a conversation. Like, and it was so clear. And Elsie is who's right here. Um, being very sweet right now. Um, Elsie is the smartest cat that I've ever lived with. And we had already been doing a lot of training with her. So she had all of these tricks. Like she can sit, she can roll over, she can high five, she can do patty cake baker's man, like all of these things. And so I thought, I bet she could learn this. And part of the reason that I was interested in it was that she would, in the evenings, particularly, she would come up, she would put her paw on my foot and she would look at me, and she clearly wanted something. And I could not tell what it was. And she would get frustrated. And she had all of these frustration behaviors, you know,
Mhm.
biting me, things that people call bad behaviors that really just like, frustration because you've got a thing you want to communicate and you can't. And so I thought if she could just tell me what she wants to play, that was all I was hoping for. And it took her about 6 months to start using words. A lot of that was circumstantial. The first buttons I tried were too big for her to press. She's a very small
Mm,
cat.
mhm.
Um, she weighs about 7 pounds. And so she just couldn't make a sound. The second problem was that I picked the wrong word, I think, in hindsight. It was
What
a word
word?
that I
Oh,
picked I picked open because
oh,
I was all of the material that was available was dog centric. And so
yeah.
the outside was a good suggested as a good starting word, which,
Mhm.
we're now realizing is not as good a starting word because it takes them away from the board. And so I picked open because cats always want to be on the other side of a door.
Mhm.
And she at the time was a strictly indoor cat. She can go outside on harness now with supervised things. But she liked going into the hallway of our apartment. And so the problem was that she also had a perfectly good way of communicating that to me. So she was like, "Why do we need another system?" And then we also had some construction happening, so like there was a lot of disruptions. I think I think now if I were starting again with a new cat or with her, that probably I would have gotten them doing button pressing on day one because of target
Mhm.
training. That's certainly what happened with Guppy, our dog. But then once Elsie figured it out, then we started adding 2 to 3 new words a week. Like it
Yeah.
was wild how fast she was learning things.
So for the first 6 months, where you were just patience and belief and whatever else goes into
Mhm.
that process, did you just have the one button that entire time, or did you
Just
you
that,
did?
yeah,
Wow, wow,
just
wow.
that
And
one
then
button.
Had you done target training with her, or were you just like modeling? Like anytime there was an opportunity to open everything, you'd say
Yeah.
open and you'd press the button and just demonstrate for her?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I had it by the door and I would just say open and press the button every time we went in or out, every time the door opened. I would do some rapid modeling where I'd be like, open, like that, opening and shutting the door. Um, but but as far as Elsie was concerned, the way she signaled that she wanted the door to open was she would stand on her hind legs, she would bat the doorknob, and she would yell at me.
Yeah,
Um,
system.
It's a great system. It's
Yeah.
very clear.
Very clear.
And she's like, this other thing that's on the ground.
Like why?
Yeah. And so somewhere in there, I saw Justin Bieber, the Cats video on target training. And that was the first time I'd heard of it.
Mm.
And that was also one of those turning points when we finally did target training. She had begun having presses. But what I wound up doing was my camera follows me, so come here and I will show you the door. So she would reach up and pat the doorknob, but she would always put one paw on the door as she was reaching for it. And so I just put the button where her paw landed naturally.
Genius. Yeah.
And so for a while, her button board was taped to the door of our apartment. And I'm like, well, this is not sustainable.
As it grows, like 100 buttons taped to a door.
It's just like, oh no. Yeah, I think there was at one point we had like 6 or 7 buttons taped to the door. I was like, this is not gonna. And that, I think right in there was when I found target training. And so I slowly moved the buttons down the door and then did target training to get her used to pressing them on a flat surface. And that was really when things started taking off.
That's amazing. How did you, so I mean, I think that a lot of people sort of expect that they'll get the buttons, they'll pick a few sort of salient words for their learner, and then their learner will just be pressing like within a week or 2 or a month. And then when they're not, they're like, oh, my learner is too dumb, or my learner doesn't want to do this, or they've already got their own communication system. Why would they bother? So how did you conceptualize staying with it for 6 months? Like what kept you going? Why did you continue with just that one button that she wasn't pressing?
So I think that some of it was that like with the first one, when I finally realized that she wasn't pressing it, and I saw Billy's buttons, which were the Fluent Pet ones, I'm like, those are tiny. So I suspect that I might have given up if I hadn't gotten a new set of buttons to restart. But it was also very easy because it was right next to the door to just press it as I went in and out. I think when we got the smaller buttons, it probably was only, it was probably only a month or 2 after that she finally made that first button press. But it was, I don't know, it didn't seem onerous to do. And it also seemed like the reward, if she got it, would be so great. And I could also, I would say the other thing was that I could also see that she understood that there was a thing. She just didn't understand what she was supposed to do. I've got a put together a compilation reel, which is a pinned post on my Instagram, on her Instagram account. And it's got some of the things that she was attempting, because she had made some accidental button presses where she would like go up and she would bite the edge of the foam, and like some part of her body would accidentally press the button. And so she's like, oh, so this is what I do. I'm like, no, no, baby.
I think I saw evidence of that when I saw you in Seattle, right?
Oh yeah.
Chewed up. Yeah.
Chewed up. Yeah.
Yeah.
So she's, but I could see that she understood that there was something she was supposed to be doing. She like, you could see the pieces starting to connect.
Yeah.
Whereas her companion cat at the time, Helix, we named him after a black hole, HLX1. And like his namesake, he was small and dark and dim. He was such a sweet boy. but he just he was a little black boy, and just didn't get it. Like he didn't understand any piece. Like we had
Mm.
target training. I like spent weeks with him, and it was very clear that he just didn't. There was no link,
Mm.
but often he had no links. So
Interesting.
like
He was just like in his own zone, cared about things that were not at all related to what you cared about,
well, like
doing his own thing.
like his automated feeder would go off, and he would spin in circles trying to remember where the feeder was, which never
Oh,
moved. He was a sweet
buddy.
boy. I know.
Um, it's not for everyone.
It's not for everybody. Not everybody. And that's like, I will say that that's one of the things for me with the buttons is the buttons and communication in general is they're nonverbal humans, and AIC, as you know, I'm speaking to the general people now. AIC developed from augmentative alternative or alternate communication for nonverbal humans. And so I think that having language, we place so much of an emphasis on it, but I don't think that that's the defining thing of what makes someone a person, whether they're a human or an animal. Like I think Elsie is a person. I don't think she's a human. She's definitely not a human, but she has thoughts. She has opinions. Helix, sweet boy. He had thoughts. He had opinions. He just wasn't a verbal creature. I say that he did quack. Actually, he was adorable.
He was a duck.
He was a duck. He would walk across the room going, quack, 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 quack.
That's adorable. I love that.
He's very sweet.
Yeah.
boy.
Yeah. Aw. So tell me about the moment. It sounds to me like you'd been modeling, you'd had them on the door, you found out about target training, you moved them slowly to the floor, you were practicing target training, and then at some point, Elsie pressed the button of her own accord without you paying attention for the first time. I'd love to hear what that moment was like.
Well, that was actually while it was still on the door. It was still taped to the door, and I remember I was sitting in a chair, and I was actually filming her because I was trying to film every time she went to the door, just in case. And we'd had some presses that were kind of accidental, but this time she like goes to the door and she stands up on her hind legs, and you can see her push the button. And I was like, oh my God, victory. And it was like, I just ran to the door to open it for her. And then she started pressing it every time she wanted the door open. And I'm like, yes, honey, every time that door. And so that was super exciting. That was like, it was, I imagine that it's similar to the moment when a baby is like, mama, and it's clearly an intentional sound as opposed to just
babbled.
howling. Yeah.
Yeah. That is so cool. And so at that point, for me, when that happened, it was game on. I was like, all right, we're going to add play. We're going to add mom. We're going to add fun, happy, whatever. So that was sort of the same for you. You mentioned earlier that as soon as she started pressing independently, you were adding multiple, like 5 buttons a week or something?
Two to three
buttons a week. So what were some of those first buttons that you added and why?
So, so one of the things, because I've always been interested in language, I was very interested in the science that was happening with this. And at the time, Fluent Pet had a list of words, a sequence that they suggested. And it was, or maybe it wasn't Fluent Pet, maybe it was the research study. But I was like, I am going to follow this sequence because that will probably be useful for the researchers. And I wish I had not, because
we know so much more now.
Yes, because we know so much more.
Right.
I'm glad that I did, because it reduced the decision anxiety. Like I've had so much decision paralysis.
Yeah, for sure.
And indeed, when we got deeper in, I was like, oh. And one of the so a lot of the words that I was adding were those, but they were again all dog centric. And so,
like play, tug, ball, those sorts of things. Yeah.
Yeah. But there was an interview with you actually that I read or saw someplace where you were talking about the fact that you had added the word dream.
Mm.
Um, and you said something like, I'm paraphrasing you wildly. You said something about how the fact that you were an artist and that you were less interested in the kind of mechanics of it and more of um the conversations that you can't have in any other way with your animal. Like,
Yeah.
like, do I know when she wants food? Yeah, I do. Yeah. Um, but how she feels about things. And so for me, that was when I really started adding a lot of emotion words.
Mm.
And in a lot of ways, I think the emotion words were the thing that really unlocked stuff for Elsie. Um, so the way I often think about it is, she's not speaking English. We've created this pigeon between us. And so most of the words, we have this overlapping Venn diagram, but we don't always mean exactly the same thing. And for whatever reason, the emotion words, we seem to have more of an overlapping understanding of what the word means than with
Interesting.
some of the concrete things like concrete nouns. I It's always a crapshoot about what attribute of a thing she latches onto as being this is what this word means. Um, but
Can you give us an example?
yeah, hair tie. So for me, hair tie is something you put your hair up with. And she loves chasing them. I will do a side note because I know someone is going to say this. Elsie is not one of those cats that we have to worry about eating things, but most cats you have to carefully watch them with hair ties.
Yeah.
And they are indeed only out when there is still someone observing. But I would shoot the hair tie for her, and then she started saying hair tie kibble, and I'm like, hair tie kibble? And I realized that for her, hair tie meant the action of throwing something.
That's fascinating. That is so cool. Yeah.
Um, and she's very
Right.
consistent.
Because you're using a specific object, which we have labeled hair tie,
Mm-hmm.
in a specific activity, which
Yep.
is launching something,
Mm-hmm.
right? So how do we specify? I mean, to us, it's obvious because we've learned this. We've been conditioned,
Yeah.
obviously, over time that hair tie means this thing that we wrap our hair in. But for her, hair tie and the action of like launching
Yeah.
are one and the same.
Yeah.
It's so cool. I love that. Yeah. So did
Yeah.
you then differentiate at all? Were you able to differentiate hair tie as an object versus like throw? Did you give her a button for throw, or does it not matter because you have this joint sort of pigeon language that, this word has these multiple meanings?
Yeah, I didn't worry about it. I was just like, it's fine. I have now given her the word, or I say now, at some point in there, I gave her the word hunt.
Mm.
Because she was using it wasn't hair tie that she was using. She was using puzzle to
Mm.
mean look for something.
Ah,
And
that's incredibly clever.
yeah. And so, but it was confusing because I would get things like puzzle cat, where she was I was fostering cats and she wanted to go hunt them.
Okay. Go
Um,
Elsie.
yeah, she's she's a
Little
tiny one.
huntress.
Yeah. So she also has like some sweet interactions with the fosters, but she's a swatty little girl sometimes. But so I gave her hunt, and now I she has 130 words, so I'm very cautious about introducing new words at this point because I just run out of floor space.
Yeah.
But if I were doing it again, I think what I would probably do, and I'm about to do this with Guppy actually, I think I would just list every word that I think I want a way to communicate with her, whether or not it was something that I was actually going to give her. I would just do this massive brain dump of a thing. And then I think I'd group them into categories. And then in each category, pick kind of an umbrella word, which we did with fabric.
Mhm.
So rather than having a word for blanket and towel and literal fabric, like when I'm making something, I decided to give her just this one umbrella word, fabric, and then we've got bathroom fabric, are towels. Snuggle fabric is a blanket.
Oh, that's so clever.
Um, so starting to think about umbrella words. I got the idea because of Parker, Sasha and Parker. They don't have words like bedroom, bathroom. They have the word room, and then like food room,
The activity that happens in the
yeah.
room. Yeah.
And that was one of the things that got me thinking about umbrella words. And the other thing about that is that it makes it much easier for someone who is not me to communicate with her.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because someone else hears hair tie kibble and they're like, I got nothing. And I'm like, oh, she wants
Yeah.
you to throw it.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
You know?
Oh, that's really smart. I love that. How has your process with Guppy been different? Like what has surprised you in the differences between the way they've learned, the way they communicate, what they're interested in communicating about?
So Guppy is super sweet. She's a very smart dog. Like she learns when you're teaching her a new trick, or we're doing service dog training with her, and she picks things up so fast. She learned buttons day one. She was pressing intentionally. We started her with 3 buttons: pets, play, and treat. We did target training on treat, and then immediately added pets and play, and she got it. It's a year now, a little over that. She has 20 words. And the thing with Guppy is that she's only interested. She's a simple girl. She wants to be outside. She wants to be with her friends. She wants,
Aw.
and so the vast majority of her presses are outside, hurry outside. And then friend, like when it's really super sweet, she has upstairs neighbor dogs, and so sometimes they'll all be playing outside, and then Guppy will come to the door and press inside. She has a button so that she can signal she wants to come in. She'll say inside, I'll let her inside, and then she'll go to the board and say something like, treat outside friend, and the other dogs are like pressed, and it's like come on, guys,
so sweet.
Mom will give us a treat.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's adorable. That's very sweet.
Yeah.
I feel like there are several members of the community that have sort of these existential learners that are really interested in talking about feelings and concepts that we don't expect non-humans to be interested in communicating about at all. And then we've got within the same household, learners who are very much communicating about things that we would expect dogs and cats to communicate, like give me food, let me play, let's snuggle. And to me, that makes a ton of sense, right? Because as is very obvious, all of the different learners in a household are going to be individuals. They're all going to have different interests. And that really speaks, in my opinion, to the importance of picking words that are salient to the individual's experience, right? Not choosing words that are things that necessarily we want them to communicate about, but things that they're already interested in communicating about, but don't have a way with their body language to communicate. That's super interesting.
Yeah, it is exactly like their personalities are so different. And I don't think it's just the difference between dog and cat. I think there's some of that, but Guppy is like, I remember her vet saying, she's just an extracurricular kind of dog, isn't she? And I'm like, she's like she would be a jock if she were a human. Like she loves everybody. She's a pity mix. So she's like, I love everybody. And let's just go do things. Let's be outside and doing things.
Yeah, I mean, that's very much like Otter. I mean, he uses them a little bit for evil sometimes, to manipulate the environment or get someone else's treat. But yeah, I mean, he's a lot about outside, scritches, play, sort of, the things that you would expect a bro poodle to be communicating about. And, I don't want to overgeneralize or, but whatever. Yeah. He's very much dog, and he very much communicates in the way I would expect a dog to communicate, whereas Bunny does not at all strike me as a dog in any way, shape, or form. And she's constantly surprising me by the words I feel compelled to add based on the things she seems to be trying to communicate. And it seems like Elsie is sort of a cat that does communicate similarly or wants to
Yeah.
communicate similarly.
Yeah. She asks questions, which is just fascinating to me. She's so curious. She just wants to know, like, where were you? Who is that? She doesn't have a who button. And she will say what hi, which is like, what
Oh,
person did I say hi to, is the way I kind of unpack that into English. And she's
yeah.
really consistent about it. It's like what hi after a new person has been in the house.
Oh, that's so interesting. Is there a reason you've decided not to add a who button?
What hi is very clear and it's already there. And
Yeah.
it's just like one, it just keeps one more button off the board.
Right. 131 buttons is too much.
Yeah, it's a lot. I've been trying to yeah, I occasionally look at the board and go, is she using that word? And I
Mhm.
think maybe I can take that word away.
And then she'll use it the next
and then
day.
she uses it. Yeah,
Of
exactly.
course. Yeah.
Or there was one time I took words away, and she got mad. She was like mad. And I was like, what are you mad about? And she's like, word. I'm like, what word? And it didn't actually, it took me a long time, longer than it should have, to realize that I had taken two buttons off and she was saying word. And she kept doing that grouping.
Oh my gosh, that's incredible. That it just blows my mind. It reminds me of when I switched from the larger buttons that we
Mm.
had to the Fluent Pet buttons. And I completely rearranged everything because my buttons had been in a grid, and then we were moving to the hex tiles to help her compartmentalize. So we were basically starting from scratch, but she already had about 30 words and they were completely reorganized now. And I was going to start modeling from scratch. And she explored those words. And for a week straight, she just kept pressing want, where, mad, all done, want, where, mad, all done, different combinations of those three words. And it took me, longer than it should have to realize that she was upset that I had reorganized everything. She wanted to know where her words were, and she was just absolutely done with me.
Yeah.
I mean, it's incredible how clear they can be with our language
Yeah.
and us still not get it. I mean, I feel like I'm outsmarted constantly by Bunny's use of words, the way she combines words to mean things that she couldn't, she only has 115 buttons or whatever. There are only so many ways that she can get a point across, and yet she manages to. And it sounds like Elsie very much does the same thing. And on that note, I'd be curious to hear what some of her most memorable communications have been, the things that really astonished you. I mean, we've talked about a few of them already, but I'd be curious to hear more. If you
Yeah.
haven't.
Since we're talking about combinations, I had just come back from a trip. And she pokes around my suitcase, which she does. When you come back, there's a lot of interesting new smells. And she goes over to the button board and she says, smell, buy box. Right? I'm like, what a perfect combination.
For suitcase.
Yeah. And even like, and then my brain starts going, of course, like suitcase is actually a combination. It's a case that you hold suits in. She doesn't know that. And I don't wear suits anyway, but it's the box that I pull out when I'm going by. Like, what?
That's a much better word for suitcase than suitcase.
Yeah. Buy box.
The buy box. Gosh, that's insane. That is so cool.
Yeah, it was wild. And then other things that, like the, one of the biggest that I was like not expecting, was after Helix died, the way she communicated about grief, and continued, like she will still occasionally, say his name. But we had him put to sleep at home. I didn't have her in the room when it happened because I was like, I feel like having her there to watch someone actively kill her friend is bad.
Oof.
Which is what's happening,
That's so hard.
But after they put him down, because we were also going to bury him at home too, I brought her back into the room and let her smell his body and do all of, and make sure that she had that opportunity. And then that night, she went to the chair that was his chair, and she smelled that. She went to his bed, she smelled that. And then she went to her button board and said something like, I don't understand, ouch. And it was just like, oh God.
Yeah.
um, and uh, and I think she said his name in there too. I can't remember the sequence right now, but we had this back and forth conversation about the fact that he was gone, and then I left the room after we had talked a little bit, and she's off camera. I actually posted this, but you can hear her crying. And then it goes back over to the button board and says ouch again. And I was just like, oh my God. Like, the fact that she's doing that by herself, that she just needed one more way to express her sadness.
Oh,
It was, and she unfortunately has lost 2 companion cats, and the first one was Pre-Buttons. And the sounds that she made at that time were very similar, or they were the same sounds. And I think about what it must have been like for her to process that without being able to ask for help or comfort.
Mhm.
And
Oh,
yeah. And so now when she talks about, when she brings up Helix, at first I was like, oh my God, what do I do? And now it's like, I talk about him. I'm like, yeah, we miss Helix. It was very sad. Helix was a funny boy. You know, I just talk about him a little bit. And that seems
yeah.
to be what she wants.
Yeah. Just like share the memory.
Yeah.
Wow. Gosh, it's so potent.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
so potent.
It was just wild. And then a year after he died, another thing that I was not expecting is that she likes to wear clothes. And so she'll ask for coats, which is another umbrella word. It can be her harness or a sweater.
And then you offer her choices and she gets to select, or?
Yeah, I offer her choices. She gets to, like, sometimes she clarifies ahead of time, which I appreciate. Most of the time not. But sometimes it'll be outside coat.
Oh, yeah.
That's a harness, or actually
Yeah.
coat outside. Sorry. She tends to do important word and then modifier. Coat yarn is a sweater.
Wow.
Coat fabric tends to be like, she doesn't always do it, but
Yeah.
but she's, most of the time she says coat and then just stares at me and goes coat. I'm like,
Okay. She's like, give
she's
me
like,
options.
you just figure it out.
No.
So I offer her choices. And usually what she'll do is she'll boop with her nose or with a paw the one that she wants. If she doesn't want either of them, she just looks at me like those. She's very cat sometimes. And it was chilly, so I pulled out one of a quilted coat that we had gotten for Helix as one of the things to offer her. And she smells both coats, walks away from me to the button board and says, "Smell Helix."
Oh my gosh. Oh my
I
gosh.
died. I just was like, well, and now I'm going to spend the rest of the day crying.
Yeah. Wow. What did you do in that moment? How did you respond?
Well, she went from the board to jump up into his old bed.
Oh my gosh.
I know, it just curled up. And so I just went to her and I was just like, yeah, we miss him. We're very sad. And just gave her a little bit of pets. And then I went and blew my nose.
Yeah. That is like, I don't even have words. I mean, we've come so far in the last, I mean, probably 20 years, right?
Mhm.
From only fairly recently acknowledging that some non-humans are sentient, right? To now having this massive community of humans with non-humans that are able to label body parts that are in pain, which you have plenty of experience with. I have personal experience with.
Yeah.
Learning how our animal companions are grieving, what their emotional experiences are around triggers, telling us when and where they want to go with
Mhm.
the remarkable specificity. I feel like things are happening so fast. We're learning so much, and relationships are absolutely being transformed because of this technology. And it seems to me now, in retrospect, like a no brainer, right? But there are still people in comment sections saying dogs don't know words,
Yeah.
cats don't know words. You know, I'm
Yeah.
curious how this has changed your connection with your non-humans, in terms of like what sort of expectations you had for relationship with non-humans before this system and now.
Yeah. So I've always had like my first cat I got when I was 5 years old. Um, and I've always had a cat. Guppy's our first dog. Like we've had dogs in our life before, but Guppy's
Mhm.
my first dog. Um, and I always thought that they were tiny people that had thoughts and opinions, and personalities. But um, but I would come home like my cat, Maggie, sweet girl, wonderful, wonderful cat. But I was a touring puppeteer, and I would go on tour, and I would be out of the apartment for a week, like for years. I'd be on the
Mhm.
road for a week, home for the weekend, on the road for a week, home for the weekend. Sometimes it was 2 weeks on the road, 2 weeks off. And I would leave her in the apartment with a self feeder and a self waterer. And sometimes I would just, I'll scoop the box when I get home. Sometimes I would ask someone to come by and scoop the box. But I think about that now, because I would come back and she would come to the door and she would just be like, "Meow, meow, 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 meow," and she would just chatter at me. And I'd be like, "Oh, I think maybe she missed me." And now I'm like,
Mhm.
"Oh my God, she was so lonely
Oh,
and had so much to tell me." And I was actually like, I didn't know I was being cruel. Like, we
mm,
were all doing the best we could with the information that we had,
right.
but, like, that's a normal thing that people do, and now I'm like, "Oh, no, because she will tell me that she's sad."
Mhm.
One of the other transformational moments, after Helix died, I had a convention, and so it was in town, but I was gonna be gone overnight, and my husband went with me. There are other people in the house. Someone was going to go in and feed her and all of that. But it's the first time that she's been alone in the apartment for an extended period of time and definitely overnight without any other companions.
Mhm.
And I got a notification on the log, because she uses the Fluent Pet Connect system. So I get, texts. Um, and it just said sad. And I was like, if that's a accidental press or what. And so I went and I checked the footage, and she's laying in a sunbeam. And based on only body language, I would have been like, "Oh, she looks so cute and cozy." And then she
Mhm.
stands up and she walks to the board and she says, "Sad." Oh. And then walks out of frame. And I'm just like, "Okay, we have to go home right now."
Yeah, yeah. Wow, that is incredible. That's incredible.
Yeah. Yeah. So the getting more access to her emotions. And that in turn has made it much easier for me to read the body language of other cats. Um,
Mhm.
so a lot of the what it's done for our relationship is that, it's unlocked her inner life for me. I knew that they had an inner life before, but
Mhm.
I didn't have access to it.
Mhm.
And now I have at least a glancing access to it. I don't, we can't get incredibly granular, um, because again, 130 words, but I at least have some access to it. And that's such a gift. Um, yeah. And then there's the medical stuff, which is,
So powerful.
yeah.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about that. Because I think that's one of those posts recently, really started increasing your visibility worldwide,
Yeah.
and because it was a very potent moment. So
Yeah.
tell us about that.
So Elsie has what we call her fancy leg. She has
Mhm.
a kittenhood injury, knee injury, which has caused some thickening of the right stifle. Basically, her knee doesn't bend well. But it's never caused her any problems. We X-ray her regularly to keep an eye on it. Not like not like monthly or anything like that, but every couple of years we do an X-ray. Last X-ray had been fine. And then she suddenly started using combinations of leg and ouch. And because of the logs, I can see how often she said the word leg, and it's like twice in the last year. And not combined with ouch. And so the fact that she was doing that, I was like, ugh. And she just had like this really big epic moth battle. So I thought maybe she had jumped for it, for the moth, and like tweaked something. And I feel a little bit weird, but I send a message to the vet. I'm like, she's saying like an ouch. It was a moth battle, maybe. So we try icing it. But she's not limping visibly. But she keeps saying it.
Yeah.
And so after 3 days, I was like, okay, we've tried icing it. So can I bring her in? And I bring her in. She had been into the vet the month before just for like, her yearly checkup. And the vet checks her over. And I'm so lucky our vet takes the button seriously. And she checks her over and she's like, I'm gonna be honest, I don't see any changes from the last visit. Her stride looks the same. She's not showing any tenderness when I manipulate things, the same range of movement, but she keeps saying this and it's unusual. Let's do imaging. And the imaging turned up severe arthritis. Like it's an old ACL injury with severe arthritis. And we like would not have been able to, we wouldn't have diagnosed that for years, probably. And this has made me think a lot about the way we interact with pets, and we talk about how they're so stoic and that they hide pain. But I think about as a woman who has menstruated, I think about the amount that the months, years of my life, in which I'm like, oh, I'm in pain and I'm just functioning normally, and no one can tell that I'm in pain.
Yeah.
And think about the scale of 1 to 10, your pain ratio, and 7 is when it begins to interfere with your life. That's when we take our pets in. Is when it interferes with their life, when they are no longer able to hide it.
Yeah.
And so the fact that we can take her in now, is like the fact that got diagnosed was amazing. And then the medication that she gave us is very good for arthritis, but it's kind of tricky to use with cats. In fact, when you go to the website for the medication, it says do not use with cats. Because if you overdose, it can or it can cause like fatal kidney issues.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. But at very low doses for a short period of time, fine. So they will sometimes prescribe it for like 3 days. And so she's like, let's try this, see what happens. And so I come home and I'm like, we don't have the word medicine on the board. And this is deep enough. Elsie's been using buttons for 4 years at this point. So this is deep enough in that often I'm able to introduce a new button by explaining it in words. And so I'm like, Elsie, new word, medicine word, medicine, help, ouch, all done, medicine. And so I let her smell it, and then I gave her a treat, let her smell it, gave her a treat. It's just basic cooperative care stuff. And then I gave her the medicine. She let me. And if anyone has ever attempted to give a cat medication, that in and of itself is huge. She let me give her the medication, and apparently this kicks in pretty fast. It's one of the reasons it's so effective. And so 15 minutes later, I'm in the bedroom with my husband, which is where we did the medication. Elsie leaves the bedroom, walks across the apartment to her button board, which is in the dark in the living room. And she says, "Thank you." Like, there is no reason for her to make that button press.
Wow.
And every night I would give her the medication and she would walk to her board and say, "Thank you."
What?
Yeah. Right?
It's
Right?
insane. That's
It's
so
crazy.
crazy. Yeah.
Like I'm living with this cat and I'm still like, I still have these, that didn't just happen. I still get skeptical.
Oh,
about
yeah.
it. But
Yeah.
the pattern was so consistent.
Yeah.
And then we put the board medicine on her button board, and I also do two-hand choice with her. So I was doing, is leg ouch? Yes, no. And she would tap yes. Do you want medicine? Yes. But then she would say medicine, and I would give it to her. And again, don't have to hold her down, don't have to do any restraint, just give it to her. Um, and realized that she only asked for medicine about once a week. So we talked to the doctor and she's like, because she can self-report on pain, because she can do it, she can request it. That means we don't have to set up like this weird, very careful medication schedule. As long as you're tracking when you give it to her, it allows us to continue to use this medication with her. And then we started her with physical therapy, and she stopped asking for medication.
That's absolutely remarkable.
Yeah, and her
It's
posture has
bananas.
changed too. Like her fancy leg always sticks way out to the side, and it was way out to the side. The before after photos are wild. And it's never going to bend as well. It's always going to stick out. But there are days when she will actually sit almost like a completely normal cat. It's still a little fancy, but even then she's, it's just, and I check in with her. I'm like, is leg ouch? And I'll get a no. And yeah, it's like that. I evangelize about buttons because of this. I'm like, I feel like even if you have an animal like Guppy, who they are simple. They just like they want to go outside. They want to be inside. They want to play with their tug. If you can establish this groundwork of language, and then later in their life, because every animal is going to hit a point where they're going to need medication, where they're going to need physical therapy. And if you can establish this groundwork, that's going to change their quality of life to such a high degree that it's like it's worth the spamming. And it happens sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. And you, correct me if I'm wrong, but you take a sort of a smaller board into the veterinary office with you, right?
Yeah. Yes. So we take a subset of, sorry, Mary Robinette's sick.
No.
I'm mostly better.
All done.
All done soon. We take a subset to the vet. I like the dream is that someday Elsie will use the buttons at the vet to answer questions.
Yeah.
But that dream is way in the future. But the Elsie used to be a cat that we had to drug to take to the vet. She didn't like it. She was very wiggly. She was, and we don't drug her anymore. And the vet uses the buttons. And so the vet will press touch back, touch belly. When we do her vaccinations, we tell her small ouch, then treat. And she doesn't have to be restrained. Like, I mean, she's getting treats, to be clear. But the fact that we can explain it to her and have her understand enough to reduce her anxiety so that we can, it makes things so much better. I've had a couple of people comment, it's like, oh, can't imagine a vet taking that much extra time. My vet says that our visits are faster because they don't have to restrain her, because she doesn't have to bring in an extra person to attempt to manage Elsie.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely incredible. Yeah, I agree with you that if for no other reason than to facilitate cooperative care, you know, we talk about this in humans that at some point, every single human will be disabled. The same
Yes.
is true for our companion animals, and that's going to happen a lot sooner than it is for us. So,
Yeah.
cooperative care is invaluable, and
Yeah.
our ability to use words to facilitate cooperative care, to reduce anxiety, to make vet visits less terrifying is
Hmm.
so powerful. If for nothing else, exactly like you said, we know when they want to eat, we know when they want to play ball. We don't necessarily know when they've got a foxtail in their paw, when they've
Yeah.
got a headache, when they've got a stomach ache.
Yeah.
So potent.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
It is really, like I write science fiction and I'm like, oh, this is what it's like to live through science fiction.
Yeah. Yeah. There must be a little bit of like cognitive dissonance there. Like, what is happening? This is
Uh-huh.
real. I
Yeah.
wrote about this 7 years ago, and
Yeah.
and now here we are.
Yeah.
That's pretty
Yeah. Very
cool.
much. Very much.
Yeah. And now you've actually written a book about a talking dog, right?
No. It
Oh,
was no, but I'm working on so the books that I was researching was a book about dragons.
okay. Okay.
Dragons and dogs are very similar. There's a
Very
service
similar.
dragon. Very,
Yeah.
um, we haven't, my agent is shopping that book right now. Who knows when, if that will come out.
Okay.
Um, I am writing currently, an Elsie novella. Um, it's called What the Cat Saw. And my elevator pitch for it is, Rear Window in space, and Jimmy Stewart is played by Elsie.
My God. I love it. Sign me up for the early release. I would love to read. Yes.
Yeah,
Amazing.
but it also has like fundamentally changed the way I write aliens when I'm writing.
Really?
Yeah, like this apprehension has aliens in it, because I'm having a conversation with a non-human intelligence, non-human
Mhm.
intelligence on a daily basis, and the way she strings thoughts together, the things that are important to her, makes me realize that even when I was trying to write aliens before this, I was still doing things that were very anthropomorphic,
Mhm.
in the way the language was constructed,
Mhm.
in the things that were important to them, especially like right now when I'm writing this Elsie novella. Um, I have to keep reminding myself sight is not most important. She is she is scent oriented and sound oriented and then sight. And so when I'm writing aliens, it's like, okay, so what is their primary sense?
Mhm.
How do they categorize things? She seems to categorize things based on actions and physical attributes, but she has very little interest in, I think, the idea of possessive, even though cats are quite
Mm.
territorial.
Mhm.
They can't, they it's more of the box. A box is not a rectangular cardboard thing. A box is, smells like paper and you contain stuff in it.
Right. Yeah. Has
It's
that? Oh,
uh,
I
uh,
just wanted. I was curious. Has that impacted how you've organized her board at all?
um it it I've been doing some slow rearranging with her board. I try to do that only when she's watching me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um but yeah, it has. And it's also impacted when I'm choosing new words. Um like I I just got her some sheepskin, and so I am labeling it by the attribute that makes sense to me, which is fluffy,
Mhm.
as opposed to calling it sheep. But I'm also then showing her other fluffy things to make sure that we are talking about the same attribute.
Yeah.
Like with the
Fascinating.
word, I gave her the word plant. And I gave her a lot of different leaves and plant matter to smell as I was giving her the word plant, um, to make sure that we had it like slightly more of an overlapping definition. The thing that my project for 2026, I think,
Mm.
is Elsie uses Guppy's buttons, but Guppy does not use Elsie's. It's just too much overwhelm. So I'm what I'm going to do is make this list of hero words and then build out Guppy's board at Guppy's pace, but build it out in ways that I wish I had organized Elsie's,
Mhm.
you know.
So that she has an opportunity to use a different organization that might make more sense to her eventually.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
hopefully,
Brilliant.
like my long-term hope is that what I'll be able to do is combine both boards so that I don't have two giant boards and like slowly move buttons from Elsie's board to Guppy's.
Yeah.
But even there, I'm like, you're still going to have two boards because you travel with Elsie and you don't travel with Guppy. So
Right. Yeah. I think that's the struggle always. It's
Yeah.
like, where do I put all of these words? How do I contain them if I have multiple learners? How much
Yeah.
overlap can there be?
Like the way Elsie uses her board. If I were doing it again, she tends to use the words at the front of the board most. And then the words at the back of the board she'll go to if she needs to clarify. She only goes to if she needs to clarify. And so if I were rebuilding it again based on the way she interacts with the buttons, what I would probably do is have a series of 4 umbrella words at the front in different categories, and then behind each a string of specifiers. Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. I like that. Yeah, it seems very logical. Yeah.
And it seems like the way she uses them, I might, yeah, I don't know. It's very interesting watching her because she's like, some learners are not robust if you make changes, and she's very flexible about changes to her board. As long as she is watching me and I'm doing it. Otherwise,
that seems like the only fair way to do it, right? Like, don't rearrange my keyboard without me being there to witness the changes. I'll just be frustrated. But yeah, if you're introducing a little bit of novelty and I'm there to see what's happening, fantastic. Let's go. Let's explore.
Yeah.
A question for you. How has your husband reacted? How have strangers, family, friends, visitors reacted to this whole process?
So Rob, I think, was very skeptical when we started. He definitely acknowledges that there's communication happening. The challenge is because I spend a lot more time with her, just because I'm home in the house more. He, in much the way that when there's a toddler, one parent can understand the toddler and the other parent cannot really. And so he doesn't know a lot of her weird combinations.
Yeah.
He doesn't know that plant tube means pumpkin. It's a plant that comes out of a can.
Yeah. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Absolutely brilliant. Yeah.
He doesn't know that. So she'll be like, plant tube, and he's like, I don't know what that means. It's not like, her cat
he doesn't speak the pigeon.
He doesn't speak the pigeon. I also think of it like ASL. ASL is its own language with its own grammar, but people think of it as a version of English, and it's not.
Yeah.
And button speak is its own thing, its own rules, its own concepts. Like, she's not speaking English. It's got English components, but she's not. And so he doesn't speak button.
Right.
Um,
I mean, it's relational communication. It's a language that you and her have developed together
yeah,
based on repeated combinations that are reinforced. That makes sense based on the context, based on the 130 words that exist, based
yeah,
on things that are happening in the day on a regular basis. Yeah.
yeah.
It's great.
Yeah, strangers are, or excuse me, friends. Strangers are dangerous people who don't come into the house. Uh, but when friends come over, people that are new to the buttons, they are fascinated, um, uh, and like by the smallest thing, uh, the fact that she presses buttons at all. Two incidents that were really hilarious. Um, Someone had interviewed me in my science fiction author self, and I was like, "Do you want to meet Elsie?" And he had said, "I have to let you know, I'm really skeptical about it." I'm like, "It's fair," but also Kat, and he's like, "Yes," and my fiance is fascinated by her, and also Kat. So they come up, and we're talking, and Elsie like is hanging out a little bit, and then she looks at one of them, and just like this laser stare, and just says loud. And
Call out.
and the interviewer was like, "Well, I've just become a believer on the spot because that is a complaint that happens all the time."
It's really, oh my gosh, that is so fun.
Yeah. And just like this instant change. That was hilarious. Um and then one of the others that was just like um hilarious and very memorable was the Denver Zoo is thinking about doing buttons with a pair of raccoons. Which I'm like, I'm so
Please, yes.
yes. So they came down to watch buttons in action to talk. And so we spent an hour talking about Elsie's button board. She came out, she was smelling them. We were all sitting on the floor next to her board, and she's smelling them all. And then she goes over to her button board and looks at one of them and says, "Seaweed." And none of her body language was like, "Please give me a treat." And the zookeeper said, "Oh, I did actually just come from the sea lions."
Oh my gosh. Remarkable. That is so incredible.
Yeah. And it's like just a single word, but
Yeah.
but and then she went back over and did more smelling of her. And I'm like, "You
Yeah.
smelling yet?" And she's like,
That's incredible. Oh,
"Yeah,
that is so wild. I love that. I love it.
yeah,
I love it.
yeah."
So given all you've learned in the last, what is it,
Four.
all you've learned in the last 4 years, what would one of your top tips be for somebody who was interested in getting started with a cat or a dog?
That would be to begin talking to them consistently,
Mm.
and thinking about what you want to know.
Yeah.
But also thinking about where your learner seems to get frustrated, because
Mhm.
that's a point where you have a gap in in communication, and that's an opportunity to unlock things. So if your learner seems to get frustrated around some aspect of play, then beginning with play words. If your learner seems to get frustrated, like if you've got a picky eater, um, starting with a bunch of different words for food, like that's going to reduce their frustration. So that's probably where I would start, is like thinking about what you want to know, but also what's going to be useful for them. What are they frustrated by? What don't they have the tools? Augmentative means adding to communication.
Mhm.
It doesn't mean inventing something new. So you're still using their body language. So like, what do you want to add to their communication skills?
Mary Robinette, this has been such a wonderful conversation. I've learned so much. I've gotten to know you better. I've gotten to know Elsie better. And I've become re-inspired, as I always am, by hearing someone else's button journey. I am so excited to see what's next for you all. And thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today.
Absolutely. I will chat with you anytime. You have given me so much through parasocial.
Well, now for real social. We met up in
now
Seattle,
for
and I
real,
hope
yes.
we can do that again more
Yeah,
frequently.
that would be great. If you ever have an excuse to come to Denver, let me know.
I will make an excuse to come to Denver.
Okay.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Subscribe.